ball had that orange thread underneath, orange yarn underneath it. Now it has blue thread all over it. So when you get it wrapped till it, so you can't see anything, any other color through it, take a couple of yards of thread and cut it off. And then we're going to thread that into a needle. Now, I like a long doll needle. This is a 3-inch doll needle. I got them in the fabric store in a package of 5, except there's 2 this size and 3 even bigger. But I bought it anyway because I wanted this size needle. In fact, I use this size so much, I went online and found 5 of them in a package by themselves. And then I found them in bulk, and I even bought them in bulk. But I can use them to teach. Anyway, so if I were to use this ball as it is, these threads are going to wiggle all over the place. And I'm going to stitch the fancy stitches on there. They're not going to stay put, and they're not going to, my stitch is not going to go where I want it to go because these threads are going to wiggle. So I'm going to take stitches all over this ball. Take small inch or so stitch and pull that couple yards through. Now normally you don't sew with that long of a thread, but in this case it won't matter because it's not going to take any tension and won't matter if it frays a little bit. Okay, so now a lot of people go in a zigzag pattern, take a stitch here and then a stitch here and then a stitch here, but I find I lose the direction, so I just take stitches all over and use up about half of the yarn. Just keep going and keep going. Take some more stitches and then turn the ball around and go the other direction because I probably went most of the way around that time. Go in a different direction, do them random, whatever works. When we get about half the yarn used up, we're going to start looking at the ball and seeing if we have any loose stitches. We probably will. Okay, I don't know if I used half of that yarn or not, probably not. But I'm going to take my finger and wiggle these threads. This one's a long one. That one's going to move. So I need to take a stitch over top of that one. Now I'm doing this backwards to me, so I don't know if I'm going in the right direction or not, but that's okay. I want you to be able to see it. Okay. It still may move. This one may move because it's long. Find all those long stitches and take a stitch over them. And keep going. It takes about at least a yard to do this with, so we're going to just take stitches. Now on purpose, I'm going to leave a real loose stitch just to show you what to do. So I'm going to leave that little loose stitch and pretend I missed it and take another stitch. And then when I wiggle the threads, I'm going to find that loose stitch. Oh, there it is. Well, darn it, I didn't mean to leave a loose stitch. Now what do I do? Well, I take a stitch, one side of that loop. This thread happens to already be there, so I'm going to just use it. But otherwise I'll just take a stitch. Take a stitch back here, away from that loop. Then take the needle and go through that loop. Go through that loop. And pull that stitch down. Pull that stitch down so it's tight. Hold on to it. Take another stitch somewhere. And I took care of that loose stitch. Because chances are one of these stitches is going to wiggle and move like that. And you're going to have to figure out how to fix it. Whoa, that didn't work. Have to go to retrieve it. You can tell your ball's really round because you will drop it. Oh, this is not a good thing to do around cats because, you know, I don't have cats, but most of my friends do, and they'll have fun. You won't, but they will. Part of the reason I like these doll needles is their eye is so big that they're usually easy to thread, except when you're on camera, then they're not easy to thread. Anyway, okay, so keep taking stitches across the ball, and when you get until you get them all those stitches, you know, they're not going to move. I mean, they may move a tiny bit. If they move a ½ inch or so, that's okay. But if they move a lot, take a stitch over it. Now, say you needed to start it. Okay, say we're going to end this thread. What you do is you hold it a little bit taut, put the scissors flat on the ball, and cut it. Now the ball's going to fall. And then if you're holding that thread tight, that extra little piece of thread will just kind of pop in there. Now if you want to start a new thread, it's kind of funny, but if you lick the end and take the stitch and pull that thread higher. Where is it? Can you see it? It's right here. There it is. Pull that thread till it just pops in. And that little bit of spit on there will keep it in there, and just take a couple more stitches and it will definitely be secure. Okay. So I'm going to finish off this thread, and then I'm going to call this done, and we'll see you in the next video on how to stitch it. Oh, I should tell you what we need for the next video. It'll be on the description. But we need the ball you made, a needle or two. Having two is better than none. You need several pins. They don't have to be these big ball pins, but if you have a way to mark at least one pin a different color, that's always easier to have that one pin a different color. So we need 8 to go around, and a top and a bottom. So we need 10 pins, preferably 8 of one color and one or two of a different color. And then we need some kind of thread to mark the ball with. Now, a lot of people use real shiny gold or silver cord. You may or may not have that laying around the house. This is a little thick. It's pretty when it's done, but it's a little thick to actually sew with. So I usually use a different thread. I lay it down where I want it to be. I'll show you how to do that later. And then I use a different thread to sew it down because it's hard to pull this through the ball. You can use a couple layers of regular thread to mark it, just in a different color. And I have this fancy, actually, sewing thread. It goes through a sewing machine that works really well to mark a temari, but it's hard to see because it's similar shade. It's pink and blue, but it's similar shade. But it's just anything to mark it with. But you can use a different color thread since we're stuck at home and can't really shop. That may be what you have to do. Okay, and then we need a strip of paper that's about 1/4 inch wide and the length of a sheet of copy paper. So the 11 inches, that should handle most balls that you get, and we'll use that. And then we'll use pearl cotton or craft thread. This is craft thread or embroidery floss or petty punch yarn or anything that works. Here's where you can use your little wools, as long as you can stitch with them. You can use embroidery floss, but embroidery floss you have to kind of lay down each thread. This was actually sewn with several layers of sewing thread, but to make it pretty you have to lay them and make them go flat each stitch. So that's probably not a beginner thing, but if that's what you have, that's what we'll use. Okay, so that's it for now, and we'll see you in the class whenever the A&S department gets it set up.